Hello students, this is Ardik sir and today we will be starting our third part from the lesson From Trade to Territory, Standard 8 History, where the company establishes power. As we have already seen how did the trade lead to battles, number of battles were fought between EEIC and Indian rulers, and slowly and gradually the British were able to establish their rule over different parts of India. So with the introductory, first you will find the Battle of Plassey, as you have already seen this. So when Alivardi Khan, who died in 1756, so after Alivardi Khan, Sirajud-Daulah, who became the next Nawab of Bengal, but actually company wanted the Nawab should be a puppet, means the company wanted a ruler who should act like a puppet. Now what is the meaning of the word puppet? As you can see, we are helped with the meaning of the puppet. That puppet is actually a toy. If we go with the literally meaning, that puppet is actually a toy which can be controlled or which can be moved with the help of strings. As it has been used for a person, that means a person who is controlled by someone else. That someone else will be EEIC, means EEIC will be controlling that particular ruler, and thus they wanted such a ruler so that that particular ruler would give them trade concession and other privileges, other benefits they would be able to get from such a puppet ruler. If they have such a ruler, then definitely they can have more and more concessions and their demands will be fulfilled. So the company tried, though without success, to help one of the Sirajud-Daulah's rivals become the Nawab, and ultimately that will come true. An infuriated Sirajud-Daulah asked the company to stop meddling the political affairs of his dominion, means whatever the parts were of Sirajud-Daulah, Sirajud-Daulah asked the company to stop interfering in his political affairs especially. So but the company would not stop, and even also asked them to stop the fortification and to pay the revenues, which they were having a huge loss of revenues for Bengal. So that's why Sirajud-Daulah asked the company to stop meddling, entering into political affairs of his area, of his dominion, even to stop the fortification and to pay the revenues. But after these negotiations ultimately failed, means whatever the discussions took place with both the parties, it totally failed because the British did not agree with all these demands, and Nawab, means Sirajud-Daulah, ultimately would march. He marched with 30,000 soldiers to the English factory at Qasim Bazar, and Nawab captured the company officials, locked the warehouse and disarmed all Englishmen. Means whatever the weapons they had, ultimately the army was totally ruined by Nawab, and even also blockaded English ships. Then Nawab marched to Calcutta to establish control over company's fort there. So Nawab now was in the mood of controlling and in the mood of war, but this news reached Calcutta, presently known as Kolkata, company official in Madras. By the time this fall of Calcutta, the news were reached to Madras, presently known as Chennai, where the command, who was the head, that was Robert Clive, and Robert Clive, with the help of naval fleets, directly he reached to Calcutta, and after long negotiation, has given prolonged negotiation with Nawab, finally in 1757 Robert Clive led the company's army against Sirajud-Daulah at Plassey. That means, as we are with the title, the Battle of Plassey. So that fulfills ultimately how the Battle of Plassey took place. So one of the main reasons, if we discuss about this, one of the main reasons for the defeat of the Nawab was the forces led by Mir Jafar. Mir Jafar, who was one of Sirajud-Daulah's commanders. You have to learn this question. Who was Mir Jafar? Mir Jafar was Sirajud-Daulah's one of commanders, but he never fought the battle. And why didn't he fought the battle? Because Clive had managed to secure his support. Means Clive had created a conspiracy against Sirajud-Daulah with the help of Mir Jafar, because Mir Jafar wanted to be the next Nawab. So he promised, means Robert Clive promised Mir Jafar to make him Nawab after crushing Sirajud-Daulah. Ultimately, the Battle of Plassey became famous because it was the first major victory for the company that it has won in India. And through this, the establishment of British power is seen in the pages of history that you can see, and you will be studying even in further. After the defeat at Plassey, Siraj-ud-Daulah was assassinated and Mir Jafar was made the Nawab. It means as Mir Jafar has supported EEIC because of Robert Clive, as we have seen about the conspiracy, and he was now the next Nawab of Bengal. Now the company, as they wanted a puppet ruler, now they had Mir Jafar. So the company was still unwilling to take over the responsibility of administration. Company was not ready to take the responsibility of administration. It only wanted money because its prime objective, their main target goal, that was of expansion of trade. If this could be done without conquest, through the help of local rulers, if this could be done, this means it wants to say the expansion of trade. So if expansion of trade was possible without such wars and without such conquest, and for them if the local rulers are working, then definitely they were ready for this, and they wanted such a local ruler who would grant them number of privileges, number of concessions, duty free trade, it would be allowed for them, and then territories need not to be taken over directly. Means they didn't want territories to be controlled directly because they were not interested for taking this responsibility of administration, but they had only one target, that was expansion of trade. But to fulfill that target, they had the local rulers who would take care of them, they would give them number of privileges, and ultimately that was the basic reason that they didn't need to take over any of the territories directly. But soon, after a period of time, the company realized that it was very difficult through the puppet Nawabs also, because with the help of puppet Nawabs also they were not able to expand trade and not get all the privileges. So that's why after all they had to maintain a basic appearance of dignity and sovereignty if they wanted respect from their subjects. So for that also now they would be trying to enter the politics. So now what company would do? What would be the option for company? So when Mir Jafar protested, why Mir Jafar protested? Because after giving number of privileges, Mir Jafar found that the treasury of Bengal was reducing day by day. There was a lot of loss of revenue day by day, and that's why now Mir Jafar was not ready to give number of privileges to the company. So company, after his protest, deposed him and installed Mir Qasim in his place. Means now Mir Jafar was no more the Nawab. Mir Qasim became the next Nawab of Bengal. When Mir Qasim also complained that he was actually not able to give number of privileges and such a huge loss of revenue, now ultimately he also had to fight a war. That battle known as Battle of Buxar, as it was fought at Buxar, the year it was fought, it was 1764. And after that battle, after the defeat of Mir Qasim, again Mir Jafar was reinstalled as a Nawab. Means Mir Jafar now again became the Nawab of Bengal. The Nawab now had to pay rupees 500,000, that means 5 lakhs rupees every month to the company, but company wanted more money. This 5 lakh were also not enough for the company, so company wanted more and more money. Why company wanted more money? As you can see, just to finance its wars and meet the demands of trade and other expenses. So as to meet the demands of trade, the target, as you can see, even now to finance war, because without interfering the politics, the company couldn't rule it. So it wanted more territories and more revenue. Ultimately for money, now they wanted more and more money. So by the time Mir Jafar died in 1765, now company's mood was totally changed, and company now wanted to directly be the Nawabs, as they couldn't work with puppet Nawabs. They had failed to work with puppet Nawabs. So Clive declared, we must indeed become Nawabs ourselves. Now company itself will be the Nawab. That Clive declared that we must indeed become the Nawabs, because rather than being the local rulers, they were ruling, the local rulers were not able to give such privileges, and that's why company itself decided to be the next Nawab only. So finally in 1765, the Mughal emperor appointed the company as Diwan of the provinces of Bengal. As you can see now, it has got Diwani rights. Now what do you mean by the word Diwan or Diwani rights? That we can find here, that with Diwani rights, with Diwani allowed company to use the vast revenue resources of Bengal. Means now the company had a lot of income of revenue from Bengal, and this solved a major problem that the company had earlier faced, because they wanted more and more money. Now they had right over the revenue resources of Bengal, and that's why now they had no such problem. So from the early 18th century, its trade with India has expanded, but it had to buy most of the goods in India with gold and silver imported from Britain. So whatever the gold and silver they used to import from Britain, with the exchange of that gold and silver, they were able to purchase the goods. And why it was so? Because at this time Britain had no goods to sell in India. Britain had no goods of which there was demand in India, and that's why only gold and silver which was entering to India, and with the exchange of that gold and silver, only Indian goods was to be exported to their countries. So there were some demands, there used to be something, ultimately they had to develop something so that they could import some other goods from Britain also to India. The outflow of gold from Britain slowed, means now there was not much gold coming to India after Battle of Plassey, and this ultimately stopped the assumption of Diwani. So after the assumption of Diwani, the flow of gold and silver was also slowly and gradually stopped. Now revenues from India could finance company expenses. So only there was the chance, that was through the revenues, and these revenues could be used to purchase cotton and silk textiles in India, maintain company troops, means maintaining company armies, and even meet the cost of building the company fort and offices at Calcutta. So these were the now only ways. So they had the source of income through revenue, and after earning the money, what were the expenses? As you can find, the company used to use the money by number of ways. That was purchasing the cotton and silk textiles that were produced in India, and even maintaining company armies, and also the cost of building company fort and offices at Calcutta. So these were the expenses. Now, as we have already seen, that as Robert Clive declared, we must indeed become Nawabs ourselves. So we will have a title next, that is company officials become Nawabs. So this actual word Nawabs, as you can find, that is only Anglicist version of the word Nawab, as you can find on the next page here, that Nawabs, that is an anglicized version of Indian word Nawab. That means this is like Nawab only. Okay, now let us come back to the page. So company officials become Nawabs. What did it mean to be Nawab? Now, how they used to be Nawab? So it only meant that the company acquired more power and authority, what they always wanted, but also meant something else. Each company servant began to have vision of living like Nawabs. So each company servant, they all started feeling that they also were like the Nawabs, and this ultimately, where does it lead, we will see. So after the Battle of Plassey, the actual Nawabs of Bengal were forced to give land and vast sums of money as personal gifts to company officials. So after the Battle of Plassey, so whatever or whoever the previous Nawabs were, they were forced for this, means company officials forced them that they should give all their land and vast sum of money to the company officials as personal gift, means whatever they had to gift to the company officials. Robert Clive himself also amassed a fortune in India. That wants to say that he also pursued a lot of wealth in India. He also made a lot of money in India. He had come to Madras, which is presently known as Chennai, from England in 1743 when he was of only 18 years. So if we just go through this story about Robert Clive, at the age of 18 he came to India in the year 1743 and he committed suicide by 1774. But what about this whole period? So as you can find, 1743 when he was of 18 years, he left India with his fortune of worth 401.102 billion pounds, and with this he left India. Means in the year 1767 he left with such a huge amount. And interestingly, we can find that when he was appointed as governor of Bengal in 1764, he was asked to remove corruption. What I mean to say that you can understand only as being age of 18 by 1743, just after 24 years he was able to produce this much of money with him, and that particular official by 1764 was asked to remove corruption. But the company itself came to know about his corruption, and he was cross-examined by 1772 by the British Parliament because of his vast wealth, because he had a lot of money, and that's why he himself was cross-examined. But although he was acquitted, means he was left with respect, he was not charged with any of the crime, but still he committed suicide in 1774. However, we cannot conclude that all the officials who came like this from Britain were all like Clive. Many died an early death in India due to disease and war. They were honest, obviously, and it would not be right to regard all of them as corrupt and dishonest. All of them were not corrupt and dishonest. Many of them came from humble backgrounds, and their uppermost desire was to earn enough in India. Means they came from very good backgrounds, and their target was only just to earn honestly from India. That much amount they wanted to earn, that they can return to Britain and also could lead a comfortable life. So those who managed to return with wealth led fleshy lives. They started living like lavish life, like Nawabs, and even flaunted their riches, and they were called Nawabs. As you can see, that is in Anglicized version of Indian word Nawab. They were often seen as upstarts. Upstarts, as you can find the word, and social climbers in British society. Means suddenly they had come up. They were before, like, they didn't have much money like this before coming to India, and after that they made a huge money, huge wealth, and they were suddenly they climbed with the society level, we can say, and that's why they were termed social climbers. And also they were ridiculed and made fun of in plays and cartoons. So these Nawabs were made fun in plays and even cartoons. So ultimately how the company became Nawab, as with the suggestion of the Robert Clive. And now how, after establishment of the rule, the company expanded its rule. So in the beginning we have found after number of wars, Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar, and after that it was able to establish the rule. It got the Diwani rights, we have already seen. So now how company rule was expanded. So what were the major events again from 1757 to 1857? We will be continuing this part with the part 4. So next part, till then keep learning. Thank you.